Welcome to Divine Downloads. I'm your host, Cassandra One, and this is the show where we show you how to bring the vision for your life into your reality. And today's guest is super special to me because when I first read her book, From Maiden to Mother, I literally felt like it ripped through me with soul resonance. I read it multiple times and I've recommended it to every woman in my life. It is all about our journey from our wounded maiden, our immature feminine, into our power and our mature feminine. And it is a journey that so many of us are on the precipice of right now. And so many of our mothers didn't fully get to go on. So a lot of our wounding is generational, and we really get a chance to break the chain. I cannot wait. This conversation is so juicy. Sarah is just such a delight to talk to, is just a wealth of wisdom. And a little bit about her before we dive in is that Sarah Durham Wilson midwives women from the wounded, patriarchalized feminine across the bridge to the archetypal mother or the mature feminine. Before her service to the goddess, she was a rock journalist in New York City, beginning with an internship at Rolling Stone and culminating as an editor at Interview magazine. You are not going to want to miss this interview, so without further ado, enjoy. Hello, Sarah. It is just such an honor to have you here on Divine Downloads. I really feel like, one of the visions that I have as like an author and a coach myself that I always see in my mind's eye is this like being like a Sherpa that's like holding a lantern, going through like this cavernous mountainscape in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
and and I feel like you are like a living, breathing example of that. And the book From Maiden to Mother is this, this beautiful, it's that Sherpa holding the lantern as you're going through the dark of the night. And it's just such a gift. Every woman should read it.
Thank you. Thank you. I have those same visions myself. I think a lot of us women who are here to guide other women out of patriarchy ourselves first are those lantern holders of that wisdom, that deep feminine wisdom that will guide us out of patriarchy itself. So holding up feminine wisdom is holding up the light, the lantern on the path, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Illuminating.
In absolute darkness, my friend, in utter darkness.
Absolute.
If anyone hasn't noticed, and I haven't done anything. I mean, I'm working on something right now. But I have just been in pure mourning. And I said yes to this invitation a while ago because of your, the soul resonance, but I don't, so it's so dark out there. We must be doing our deepest work right now. So siphoning for the depths of our gold we are here to offer, right? And that takes darkness and quiet to hear. Okay, it's on. Curtains up. Rehearsal's over. What is my most medicinal medicine? The deepest, most sustainable medicine I actually have right now, like taking all the bullshit away and what's the depth of me from the womb what I came to do here. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think I'm sure you have, and I've been talking a lot in the women's groups that I hold space for about like, as we navigate dealing with the barrage of just horrific news that we're seeing and what's going on in the world, that it truly is a call for, like you said, it's a call for us to like go deeper within ourselves, right? A call for us to also really activate, truly stepping into our mother, right? Truly stepping into, and for those of you listening, I want to just put this disclaimer out front. The mother isn't just if you've birthed a physical child, right?
Actually, I just want to get that at can you talk about what the just maiden versus mother is? Because I don't want anyone to be confused and feel like this doesn't apply to them if they don't have a physical baby.
Sure.
Child.
We're talking about the feminine life stages of life, right? The wheel of life and the feminine, the wheel of life and the earth, and the feminine deeply align with each other. You think of the earth's spring, the spring dies into summer, the summer dies into fall, the fall dies into winter, and we begin again. You think of the child, then the maiden time. So the child time is really birth to to menstruation. And so, sorry, the girl becomes the maiden. Sorry, no,
Okay.
no, no. Um, so the spring. So it's really like, if you break, what it's easier for me is to, because I didn't, so this is something that happened with my editor. She really wanted me to include that childlike time, but I just begin at maiden in springtime. That's when we are sort of inducted, initiated by our blood, our lineage into feminine wisdom at the time that we have our first bleed. And that is the spring of the maiden, and spring and maiden. And you can also align that with the moon phases. So we're talking springtime, waxing moon phase, and maiden time. The beginnings, life full of possibility, the time of dreaming things into being, the time of attracting things, seeking who we are in the world, trying to find our place in the world, and under the sun, trying to find our own garden, that sort of thing, right? So it's a time of beginnings. And then a woman comes into her mother, her summer, and her full moon, right? It is the time of her greatest power, her greatest pollination, her greatest power to control the tides. Think of humans, 80% water or something, to control to change the tides. She has deep power in this time through her luminescence, her feminine power, right? And it's time, when you think of the bloom opening and the pollination that happens to really spread that nourishing elements of the deep primordial, and very nourishing feminine. And then there is the fall. You can call that the Empress, the Sorceress. Some people call it, Jane Hardwick Collins in Australia calls it boss witch time. I don't like boss anything. So, but it's a very magical time as
I
fall
like sorceress.
Yes,
I'm gonna go to my sorceress era.
It's very sorcerousy, and it's a very magical time. It's when we begin to hold our blood and our magic and not give it away. The reds and the golds of the trees speak to that blood we hold and that gold we hold, as well as our wisdom, right? That we're still very ripe with. And so that's fall time, and that's the waning moon time, where we're holding it more in for ourselves now, which is incredibly powerful in an individual woman's life. It begins the second act of her life when she's taking that energy back and that power back for herself. And she's like, actually, I'm not going to give it to the world. And I mean, all the time. And I'm not going to give it to just anyone who comes. Like in Mother, we have so much energy for everyone, right? The mother cares for the other. That the word is built. It's a marsupial world. Other fits like right into the pouch of mother.
Yeah.
Right. And so Empress isn't like, there's a real boundary there for our own sake. And we do become these wise women to protect, right? We must be protected with all this rich wisdom within, right? And there is we don't think of feminine hierarchy. We think of, matriarchy. We think of communality, and circular roundtable wisdom, but there's a hierarchy within maiden, mother, sorceress, crone of, I have gone before you. I speak a new language now. I know more. I have died to that which you are in an incarnation of. So there is a lineage, there's a hierarchy and a lineage of honor,
Yeah.
right? That is held within my work, right? We
Yeah.
bow to our crones and our elders who hold this incredible wisdom, like the great mother oak tree, right?
Yeah.
And protect her, right? And so then comes crone, winter, the dark of the moon, right? And so it is one, to sum that all up and get back to your question, which is, you were saying, we're not talking about biological motherhood. There's actually the small word mother, a biological mother. It is one thing to be a mother, and it is another thing to be in the archetype of big capital M mother, like great mother to
Yeah.
herself and others, right?
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
different. And the problem with patriarchal society is women become mothers but stay in wounded maiden. So there is no rite of passage, and there is no skin shedding of the child. There is
Yes.
only children having children, creating this.
And so many of us, yeah, exactly. And so many of us came from mothers who
Patriarchal mothers.
didn't have, that stayed in their wounded maiden, and
Yes.
also didn't have, way showers for them, in society to help them. And especially, our generation of mothers, even more so than this generation of mothers with a little m, right? They really felt like the only, like, literally becoming a physical mother was the only way to, then you were in that next stage, right? But not,
Right.
but they didn't actually have anyone to consciously lead them to do this work. And so much of what becoming the mother is, um was, it was almost the antithesis of what patriarchal, like if we go like 1950s kind of like housewives patriarchy, right, where you really weren't standing in your own power at all.
Mhm.
You didn't really have any of those elements to support you. And I
Right.
think I cried so much. I've read your book 3 times.
Wow.
Because that's just how, like, I'm just a person that, like, when I
Mhm.
absorb something, I just really
Yeah.
want to absorb
Same.
it. And I like to be with it. And I cried really seeing how much my mother was in her wounded maiden, and how so many of my wounds or whatnot really just came from her never really having that passage as well. And also a lot of compassion for her, right?
Mhm.
Because I realized that, you know, she wasn't exposed to the tools. She didn't, figure it out or whatnot. Because this passage from maiden to mother is one, and please just correct me if I go off track or say anything wrong, because you're the expert here. But from maiden to mother is, it's an invitation that emerges at a point in our life, and it's really a
Mhm.
choice that we have to step into, right?
Yes and no. If we go back to the bodies of water theory and think about how, when water is, I don't remember if this is in the book or not, I think it is, that water is meant to flow, which is to ceaselessly let go, right? Which is what we're doing when we're shedding skins and shedding identities, right? I am no longer that I. Like that
Yeah.
happens a lot, especially as the shedding accelerates at midlife. So, because the first half of life is accruing and grabbing identities, roles, wisdom, loves, and identity. It's gathering up an identity. And so the
Yeah.
second, and gathering a skin to live in. And the second act is one long shed toward the end, toward God, so toward soul, right?
Yeah.
But back to where we came from. We're born, we're born like the feminine, we leave the earth and we go up. But the feminine in the patriarchal culture, we leave the earth instead of descend and go in and out, right? But by the second act of life in patriarchy, we are certainly headed back towards her, towards us, towards each other. And it's rapid
Yeah.
because it's a return of longing, and reunion, right?
Yeah.
So it's an endless free fall, sort of. I forget what I was saying about that, but the initiate. But without these rites of passage, without these midwives you were talking about, that's why I say I am no longer mad at my mother. I am mad for my mother. I am mad at her on her behalf, that she was so muted and cut off from her power, severed from her sisters and her magic, and the goddess, right? That the goddess was so buried in her and the earth that she couldn't hear her, right?
Yeah.
And so deep compassion for first of all, not only for the mother, for ourselves, for the mother we didn't have, but that's because of patriarchy, that they colonized our mothers into these sort of zombie-like machines almost, right? These pretty, pleasing, polite women who didn't know how to take a stand for themselves, and that's all complete patriarchal design. If you can't stand for yourself, how are you going to stand up for the planet? How are you going to stand up for anybody else?
Of course.
You don't have the tools.
Right.
So,
and I always say too, it's like, if they weren't so terrified of how powerful we are, they wouldn't have to put so much effort into diminishing us. Right. So it just like echoes all of the effort that the patriarchy puts in to try to like zombieify us. Right.
yes.
In so many ways, in so many angles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so powerful that they had to be burned, women.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we're taught to fear the women that were burned instead of the people who burned
That
them.
burn them, right? It's kind of
Make sense. That's boy math. That's boy math.
That's boy math. It really is. It's absolutely nuts.
So water is supposed to flow. Women, like snakes, are supposed to move through these initiations of life the way the seasons move through I'm dying to my spring to become the bud goes, I have to die, and she shatters and cries, and then the bloom bursts open, and it's agony and anguish at once, like life is, man. Okay. And so so that's what a girl is meant to do. And coming from maiden, she's supposed to go, blessings to my youth, to everything I learned, to all the seeking I got to do, all the trying rolls on, all the rehearsing for my life,
Yeah.
And now I am no longer the protected. I am now a protector.
Yeah.
I lose the mantle of helpless. I become the helper now, like a real boom, death of maiden, boom, birth of mother. Instead, what happens is the feminine life is trying to flow, and without the death, and the midwife gets blocked at maiden. There is no passing maiden, no passing go in patriarchy, right? So she stays there as long as she can, but the water gets sick. So a woman will either she will medicate if she can abort this rebirth, like Maureen Murdoch talks about in A Heroine's Journey. She will try to avoid this because she does not have the tools to midwife herself, to say that part of my life is over. I need to honor it with a real funeral and grief, and it will take thousands of funerals. It will not be one. The season of winter is upon my maiden.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? These are the signs, because the women before me are the guides.
Yeah.
Here is how you know, sister, when it's time to lay down and die.
Yeah.
We will come and attend to this rite with you. You will not be alone. Right. But instead, the feminine just gets sick. So she comes with, deep depression, deep anxiety. Marion Woodman would say deep eating disorders of all sorts, deep substance abuses, because she's sick. She's sick from patriarchy. She can't move through this natural rite that would keep her healthy and flowing. Flowing water is healthy. I teach my kid all the time. Can I drink this puddle? No, only water that's moving.
Yeah, that's a great life skill.
Yeah.
But but it's so true. It's like I've been doing right now, I'm like doing one of my courses, and we're talking about like abundance and career and kind of that evolution. And the same what you were saying, like the flow and the river is like this metaphor I keep on coming back to. Like there's meant to be a flow in our life. There's meant to be an evolution. We're meant to like follow that. And it's like we're patriarchy, even in that, sphere. One of the things I talk about is that it teaches that like, you start a job after you graduate college and you should be in that same job for the rest of your life, which is like
concrete.
Yeah, which is like not a flow at all, which is and then you wonder again, same thing. Why do you turn to substances? Why you're depressed? Why you're anxious? Right? And it's like it's just not natural.
Because part of you is begging to die. Yeah. And you're not attending to that part. So you're going to numb out the cries of that part going, please tend to this death within me. So we can tend to what is birthing. But first, always the death, right?
We have to let it die. And so I want to talk about that moment of, I know in the book you talk about, and I feel like I've had many moments, so I'm like, this could be like a multiple moment thing. But, I had a moment in my life that kind of resonated with the moment you talk about when you're like coming out of the grocery store and your aunt calls you, and it's like this, like, for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, Sarah's in the grocery store with her daughter grabbing some groceries. She doesn't have enough money to pay for everything she has, and it's like that moment of like having to put some stuff back and then bringing her groceries to the car, and her aunt calls her and says, hey, I know you have this really beautiful dream, and it's a beautiful dream, but I think you need to get on welfare.
Yeah.
And and that was, I had a moment like that where I was, I moved to Los Angeles and I was struggling to get my business going and like figure out life in a new city. And I didn't have any of my like kind of old safeguards and stuff like that. And I was going into like, I was getting sick from anxiety, all this stuff like mystery sickness or whatnot. And I finally went to this spiritual therapist, healer person or whatever. And she had me like yell at God. And so I yelled at God, and it was pretty much all my Wounded Maiden stuff coming out, being like, why have you forsaken me? Why have you given up on me? Right. And
but look at you laughing now.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me why you're laughing now.
I'm laughing now because in that moment, it was so effing real. It was like so effing real for me. And it was so much anguish and so much pain. But at the time, I left that therapist being like, F this woman. But afterwards, she literally looked at me and she was like, you need to just get your shit together. Like, what would you do right now if you had a kid? Like, she literally just asked me that. She was like, what would you do if you had a kid? And I was like, well, if I had a kid, then I guess I'd have to like create this group program, and I'd have to really push that, and I'd have to do this, and this. And maybe if that didn't work, maybe I'd get a part-time waitressing job just to make sure the bills were taken care of. And she was like, yeah, so start taking care of yourself like you have a kid, because like you are the kid you need to take care of. And I remember, at first being like, I hate her. And then, that was my like punch in the face moment. And I really like, I cried on my like hour and a half drive home in LA in traffic. And, then effing got to work and was like, wow, no one is coming to save me.
But got to work with the gifts you came to offer that you were sitting on, right? Yes. Or no?
Yes. Yeah. It was gifts that I was already trying to put out in the world, I would say, even like halfway already putting some stuff out in the world. Yeah. But I think there was a part of me that was, I think how you describe in the book, and sometimes in patriarchal society, we expect like a man to come save us, or, like the
we're told from a very young time when we're sponges and 1 to 7 is our sponge time as children. It's when we take it in, right? And so from that, in patriarchy, that begins with the small children, the Cinderella complex of, if you are pretty and quiet and you wait in the tower, someone will come save you. If you know, those fairy tales, which are patriarchal indoctrination and patriarchal propaganda, begin that we will be saved. Just wait. And so it is a patriarchal gate in a patriarchal woman's head of like, I must wait here. I
And
mean,
the interesting thing for me was that it wasn't even waiting for the man. I think because of some things in my childhood, I didn't cling to that as an option for saving. But I really thought like God, universe, magic was going to save me. Right. And I think that's really what I was waiting on.
Not the co-creation, right?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't.
Not the tantric partnership of God and artist.
Yes, exactly. So that's kind of what it looked like. Was at that point, you know, I realized in my like rantings to God that I really was like, you know, a petulant child being like, why have you forgotten about me? Why haven't you helped me out? And then when I really got quiet and listened to myself after that, it was because like, hey, I need you to meet me halfway. I've been sending you guidance. I've been sending you things to do, but like you have to be the, you know, the hands and the feet on earth, and you've got to do your. I've always been very inclined to the magical, right? Yeah. Very like from a very early age, right? Like had my own coven when I was in 3rd grade. I've been very like into that, but what I was never into was earth, and was like actually doing the, you know, the not so fun sometimes like earthy work to be a good co-creator. And so for me, that was kind of what that spatula, or not spatula, like pan over the head kind of moment was.
Spatula would be nice.
Right, a spatula would be nice and delicate. I probably got like 10 spatulas and kept ignoring them until they're like, bring out the big gun. And I was like, okay. So tell me about your moment.
So I had a moment like that, and you know, I asked you why you were laughing because we get this spiritual amnesia, right? Because in that moment you were like, I'm not going to survive, and part of you was not. Which part was that?
Yeah, the like little girl that was like thinking that like God Daddy is going to make everything okay.
So there is a real something that as midwives we would say is like, this feels like I am dying. And in patriarchal culture, that's something that people are like, ignore. But in the spiritual world, be like, yes, because it actually is. Right. Yeah. And so of course you as a terrified woman in patriarchal culture, which is a terrified little girl, is going to put that death off as long as she can. Right. Yeah. We don't know how to do this. We're going to wait until the very gruesome end when a woman has to scream at me in a therapist appointment. No, she told me the truth, so I hate her right now. How dare she? I'm paying her to lie to me.
Right? Or to give me some like spell to make it better.
I'm paying her to save me.
Yep.
You know, which is to lie. Because a woman must give another woman the tools to save her own life. Because you save a maiden in the moment, you only save a maiden in the moment. You give a maiden the tools to save her life, she can save her life for the rest of her life. And absolutely. She will have to in the patriarchy. She will absolutely have to know how to do that on the regular.
Absolutely.
And every fight will be a fight for her life. Every fight will be the fight of her life. So at that time, we're laughing as sisters who know exactly what we're talking about. Frying pan, the Wounded Maiden's last hurrah, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was the fight of your life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I thought I was going to lose it all. And I was like, am I going to have to, you know, fly home, live with my parents, you know, and I'm getting some like job that sucks my soul because I didn't, you know, make it through. And it was, and you're absolutely right, because I've been through continual, you know, incarnation since then. Yeah. And every single time it feels like that, and it feels like, is the world going to end as, and the truth is, yes, in a way,
Yes.
the world is going to end as I know it, because
Yep.
this quote that's been like literally just floating around me all the time is from Alice in Wonderland. I can't go back to yesterday. I was a different person then. Right.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like that. And it's like, there's, now that lesson and that therapist, at different times, if I feel myself at all kind of trying to go back into that, that setting of being like, angels, guides, spirits, like, please do this, you know,
Hmm.
I hear that and I'm like, okay, like, that's okay. Like, you can invite them in, and I like working with, everything, but you also get to show up. You got to show up as as equally, and you got to be in that, co-creation. But yeah, it's funny. It's funny, no matter how many times you go through it, there's more, I think, more now in my head that is like, it's okay, we'll make it through another one,
Yes.
you know.
Well,
um
yeah, that's there's millions gifts of maturity, and one of them is like stop, breathe. Oh, I've been here before. I
mhm.
know that. Okay, all right, hold up. What did I do last time? Well, I felt like I was gonna die. Check.
We're
You know,
there.
and then now there's voices that say, they'll say things to you like, "It can only get better after you surrender," and you'll be like, "Oh, surrender." Right? It's
Yes.
just going to get worse the more you fight this. Okay.
You're in pain
Yes.
again. Oh, we're depressed again. Oh, like, we're comfort
Yeah.
eating again. What are we ignoring? What are we ignoring? you
Yeah.
know
And it's time. I call it my slay and face and slay days.
Ooh, I
Face it
like
and
that.
slay it. Face it and slay it. Face it and slay it. It's just monotonous. But I didn't
And
even
never
know how to
ending.
do it. I grew up in a household where you know, anything would happen in life, my mother would crumble. We'd hide in bed, hysteria. And, to have the capability through rites of passage to be a strong woman, a dangerous woman, an encourageable woman, a woman who's like unafraid of a fight for what's
Yeah.
right, like, is just so, it's hard. It's like almost, I mean, I want to use the word, it's like, as a woman, I find it incredibly sexy of myself, but like to model for my child of like, this women can face what comes,
Yes.
like, because, and I
Yes.
use my own teachings like, okay, when I'm in maiden, this is all happening to me, right? But when I'm in mother, I'm going to alchemize that, and it's all going to, what is now going to happen through me in response to what is happening to us, and and
Yes.
once that mother comes through, my daughter can rest so easily in maiden time, knowing she's got this. I don't have to come to the front line unprepared, like a lot of maidens who grow up with mothers and maiden who have to be their best friend and caretakers. I'm safe to play and learn the world through the world as playing like a
Yeah.
cub
Yeah.
with this wolf protecting the lair, keeping the patriarchy out. And then there will be a day when I will step up into that, but I'm watching now. And that's
Yep.
resurrecting the lineage, right? And
Yeah.
bringing, yeah.
And it's so important. And it's also so important, you know, again, like, I feel the same way having a 12-year-old stepdaughter. Like, I feel like it's so important for me, because
Mhm.
that was one of the things I remember being that age and like desperate to try to find an example of a powerful
Yes.
woman in the world,
Yeah.
right? Or that was what my brain called at that time, like a powerful woman, right? Because I didn't see that at home.
Yeah.
And so just us being out in the world is
Not only did you
giving
not
other.
see it at home, sorry to interrupt you, but did you see it avidly in the culture all around you? Mature, powerful women?
No, obviously no, But what I did cling to, which is really interesting, like talking, I'm just putting this together in live time, as we talk about this journey, is one of the things I clung to so hard with these true Hollywood stories
Yeah.
of of how, because these true Hollywood stories, which I don't even know if they do them anymore, but essentially it would be like someone that was successful, singer, celebrity, whatever, and they would talk about essentially their dark night of the soul. Right.
Yeah.
So they would share about like this person overcame drug addiction, or this person grew up without any money, or this person had some illness. Right. And they were
Yes.
able to move through that. And now looking back, I'm not sure that like some of those people were like the most amazing examples, but in that time, it resonated with me so deeply that they had been through like great hardship and still alchemized it to like using their gifts and talents in the world. Right.
Yes.
And so I became obsessed with that. Um,
Yeah, you
but
were trying to track the rebirth cycle. You're trying to track the heroine's journey. You're like trying to track initiations and rebirth. Yeah, like we look for that, and then we find the goddess or the feminine, and then it's like, oh, there it is. What
yes,
I've been looking for my whole life. Yes, yeah.
so
Before her,
I want to talk about your journey, because you have that moment, and I feel like a lot of people listening might be in or around this moment. I know a lot of my listeners are either kind of in the beginning stages of doing their like soul centered work in the world, or they're kind of in that precipice time where it's like the pain is building from doing things that are no longer aligned, and it
yes.
feels really like scary to take the leap. So can you talk us through what happened when you got that phone call from your aunt, kind of had your own little frying pan moment, and then alchemized it into doing this beautiful work with women? But what was like that journey from there to there looking like?
I think that because my community and I are about to start another year-round cohort, and we were just on Zoom. Can't stand it, but here we are. Even the word I find so offensive. I'm like, I refuse to Zoom at all. I move very slow. But we were just, we were talking about the underworld part of the container that we're about to teach, and that at a certain point, the death has to be over. Right? Like a certain point, the maiden dying, and it is a phase, it's a winter, and that winter doesn't get to just last 3 months, y'all. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. It lasts years. And the less tools you have, the longer it's going to take, especially if you're unconscious to what's happening. My goddess, like, if there's no, because there's no, yeah, anyway, so as you know, so it's sort of like someone ringing a gong in the dark and going, you must start again, right? The dying is over. And in order for this beautiful dance of polarity in the world, like, there can only be so much night before day breaks again, and even Toni Morrison talks about, like, even at a time like this, there can only be so much crisis before joy has to rise again. And so it's like there's a certain point where somebody has to go, what? We can get used to the dark, too used to the dark. Instead of being navigators, voyagers of it, what's down here for me to learn, unlearn, die to? Some of us can just lie down, lie back, go far too gently into that great night, right? And so maybe someone will come if I stay here just a little longer. Maybe someone will see maybe someone will come, right? God,
Yeah.
spirit, whatever. And then somebody who loves you enough to say, get the fuck up. Right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to be nice about it, or you wouldn't fucking hear it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to tell you if they were nice. Nice has nothing to do with the truth.
No.
All right. Love is the truth. And you had to get up right then. And every great woman who has said, enough, I am not enabling you in Wounded Maiden anymore. I'm not enabling you in your helplessness. I don't even believe in it. right? You're wasting my and your time giving voice to it. No one is coming except you. And that is the very good news. Get on with the coming for you. Get on with the getting up, right? And I never saw my mother get up. And seeing a mother get up, not only get up, but then what? Dance and fight for her life. That's what that's what the maiden and you needed to see too. It's what the maiden and me always needs to see. It's what I show my child in times of conflict, crisis, right? That's who she's going, who does mom be now?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so in that moment, I had been in the underworld a very long time. And the best I can describe this is if you've seen Ghost with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze. I'm 44. So anyone, woman my age is like, stop asking me if I've seen it. I'm like, okay. But when I'm giving the analogy of I'd been down in the dark sculpting at something, at the clay wheel, no Patrick, unfortunately, behind me, fully alone in the grotesque time of the underworld. Like, you got nothing going on in the upper world except like bills and crisis. And your dad, so it's all down. It's winter up in your landscape. It's all about what's happening at the root.
Yeah.
Right. And so down there in the dark, I had my eyes closed, but this is how I work as an artist. I was sculpting something. I had something in my hands. I was brewing something in my inner kitchen. And it was this work I was doing with Goddess Inanna. And it was something so departed from anything I'd done before. I mean, I taught on the witch and the wild woman and the priestess, but I had never, it was the beginning of, it was a brand new evolution for me, and new in this sense, but going deeper back into the primordial to who I truly was, right? So it was a deeper memory of me, and that's just what's happening to us, is we're just remembering deeper and deeper who we are as we resurrect the goddess within. And so it was this work I was doing with the goddess Inanna, where she was teaching me through her rebirth journey that this was how that she had laid the steps down for the eternal rebirth cycle of the feminine, and that I could use this for my immaturity into the mature archetypal mother I remembered as the feminine, that these great gorgeous goddesses with these strong hands, strong bodies, strong hearts, that led and loved and were wild and passionate, and like had none of the sickness of the patriarchy, the ageism, the racism, the hierarchy, the hyper individuality in them. And I could slowly move out of patriarchy and out of this way that I saw the collective as broken and sick, and slowly and do this first from maiden into mother, but of course building the bridge that wasn't there. Marion Woodman had only talked that there was immature feminine and mature feminine. She never talked about how to get there, and that, she told me at the time, was my work to build that bridge. And so I had that deep down beneath me, and I remember sitting on that seat of a borrowed car, right? Had to sell it, my own car. And I said, yes, I'll go on welfare. Like, I totally give up too. Full defeat. Put the phone down, had my kid, and was like, the goddess said, you have something. You actually have something worth its weight in gold to offer this world. And really, when I went down into the depths, it was like there was this cave that I was in, right? This dark cave, and I could see myself that what I had been working on was ready enough, because as women of the earth, we can't pull out our inner work before it's done. There's an inner timer that goes off when it's ripe, but we can't bring it out of the oven a second before, or it fails everyone. It has to be ready, like lay down, pregnant, birth it, right?
Yeah.
And so what that had done is that it was sort of this dangerous time of like, if the baby stayed in me any longer, I was going to die, and if the baby didn't get out in the world, you know, I was going to die too, because this baby was going to save me, this archetypal child of this. And so so I remember I put the phone down and I went into my body the way I do. And I no longer apologize. I'm a renunciate of patriarchy. So I don't explain myself, apologize for mother tongue, mother vision, mother way of living. So I went into my body and I saw those words as a match struck. I saw a thing of dynamite, sticks of dynamite, and it blew the cave open. And I had to emerge into the sun with this, holding this boon. And what else was going to do that? That's called striking a match, right? To get me out of there. Because I could stay in there and die too. It is terrifying to bring something like that to the world and go, here is this vulnerable, unseen thing that has lived inside of me. And now, from the, and but the beauty of, and I do love a good story, and they're not all like that, was that I stayed up all night with a brand new kid, and a C-section scar, brand new, and I banged out a very simple website. And within the end of the week, I had my rent and more. And that's people going, what the fuck is a nana? What are you talking about? Maiden to mother, goddess to nana? What the fuck is this? I wasn't on to maiden to mother yet. I said, the teachings of goddess and nana. And they're a hell of a teaching.
Yeah.
And at the time, no one was talking about Anana. No one knew who she was. And there was another thing, I had to go first because the feminine always goes first. And, that's how we bushwhack. That's how we firewalk and break the path open for others.
So I love that in so many ways, because I feel like it combines one of the things I call it like practical magic, right? And that's kind of one of the things that moved through me in that co-creation energy, right? Was that you have this magical moment, but then it translated into like really practical, I'm going to build a website, right?
Yes.
And so like both of those are important, right? And having like, let that creative inspiration then take you into doing this very like earthly thing of like, okay, I gotta like hang my shingle and let people know this is available. And in that moment. And I love how you said, because I think so many of us do doubt ourselves if we're presenting something that seems obscure, right? Or seems like it's not, in the culture already, right? Like you're like, I want to teach about the goddess Inanna, and this is not like the most popular flavor of the day in spiritual world or whatever, right? And in that moment, you put up your website. What did you decide was your first offering? Was there like a thought into that, or was it just really instinctual, most obvious?
I mean, it was utterly intuitive. So I think of it as that moment when we're asked to birth something means we're asked to pull it from the spiritual other side into the physical mother side of matter, right?
Yeah.
Mata, mother, matter, real. Earth, soil, body, blood, sweat, tears,
yes,
money, and so the money's not real. It's a concept. It meant nothing to the great mother, trust me. But but the physical, and so what that takes is this mother energy. So it's like, you have all these ideas and all these dreams, and that is certainly the maiden. She dreams it all up. She makes all the plans. She loves a great new beginning, right? It's the follow through of the mother through that arduous middle or the underworld of pushing it through, like, so the dreamer dies to the doer in that moment of like, it's a downward pushing. Imagine our ancestors squatting in birth, because all the heady energy then moves through and we push this these ideas, these dreams through to the other side. And it takes labor.
Yeah.
And staying with it. Does the maiden, like the wounded maiden, have that metal, that strength for the middle? Hell no. The hard part, the blood, sweat, tears, and I'm doing this not knowing what's going to happen on the other side. I have no guarantee that people are going to get this. I know this was a soul call, not a conference call, but it's so nagging. I have to get it out of my body. I'm the only one that heard it, but the goddess won't leave me alone until I do. And this is my only chance to eat this month.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, and so then the child comes out, and what if it's a spiritually integrous birth, right? Then what we give to receive. And what that was it was literally called, I had been studying Anana for a year. I had taken over a year off of work, which is why I ended up selling so many things to survive as a new mother. And it had boiled down to the teachings of Anana. That's what I'd been studying and writing in my cave. And she said, you have everything you need here. And I did, and more. And that, I think I must have taught that like 10 times before I started, before it culminated into Maiden and Mother, which culminated into the midlife work. So once the rites of passage began pulsing through me, I just kept evolving through them.
And that's, I think I have two juicy questions for you. Well, I think they're juicy. Well, one is like, so what happened? I love that you talked about like kind of like the labor pains and staying with it, right? Because what happens, let's say someone's listening and they're like, okay, well, I feel like this is my thing. And like, if I do birth it, put up the website, hang my shingle, say I'm available for this, or I'm teaching this course or workshop or whatever it might be. And what if no one signs up, or one person signs up, or it isn't that initial kind of like kick through? Is that a call for perseverance? Is that a call for reflection on, like you mentioned, like the integrity of my vision? And did I really push through exactly? What would you say in that moment?
Always reflection, never push through. Push through is the conquistador dominator complex in us, right? There's wisdom here for me. I must retreat into my cave to listen and to hear. Because, and if you were a student of mine, that first time you offered something, we would always call it beta. We would say, this is just to learn how to do, you teach to get taught anyway. This is to get some students in so you can learn how to teach this. You don't wait in the wings for the full crowd and then come out your first time as a teacher. Yeah. I am a master teacher at 13 going on 14 years of doing this every day, right, with women, and thousands of women. Okay. So, these students of mine who sometimes, very cute, wait in the wings for their huge audiences. I'm not, get the fuck out there and teach for no money. If you believe in it that much, get them in there and then see, show them you're worth it. Don't wait for them to wake up in the middle of the night being like, that girl's worth my money, even though I've never seen her do anything before.
Yeah. I love that because I think there's some narratives that go on.
Like the one you were talking about, magic is going to happen here, not blood, sweat, tears, plus magic.
Absolutely.
I'm the magic in action.
Yes, exactly. It's like the magic and then the practical and then the showing up. And also, I sing that tune a lot too, because I think there's some people out there that teach like, well, you're worth a ton of money, so your first offer should be like $10,000. And it's like, no one here is debating your worth or the worth of your wisdom, right? Your wisdom is priceless. But I fully agree. Like I think I charged $20 for my first sessions, right? Yeah. And I did a few for free before that. Anybody that would take me just to like practice, and then you build up. And like you were saying with your journey, I feel the same way. It's like the more you teach, the more it evolves, the more you refine it, the more
Yeah.
it becomes what it inevitably will be. But if you don't start somewhere with what you have, with whoever you have, even if it's two people, like you got two people in your program, who cares? Like, slay it for those two
Celebrate the
people.
fuck out of those two people. Yes. So, that's the kind of thing. Nobody came. Well, let's talk, let's talk.
Let's talk. Was this aligned? And I find
Yeah.
that, in my business, I've experienced when I come out with an offering and no one comes, and then I reflect. Most often it was because I was thinking more with, what I will call my marketing mind than my heart. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, yeah, this is like the thing everybody wants. Instead of being like, okay, that is the thing that quote unquote, I think everybody wants, but it's not the thing I really feel called to teach. And so I was coming at it from that kind of, not that empowered place, that place of lack or that marketing, which I think is, another way like the patriarchy is really like infiltrated even a lot of the us with more soul-centered businesses is through marketing, is through like this like very kind of masculine approach to it, or I don't know, masculine, but patriarchal, right? It is kind of like you got to hit their pain points, you got to make them feel like they need it, you got to make them feel scarcity, right? Which
I
is,
mean,
I
I
think,
haven't been involved in any of that in so long that that's just such an old script that it shocks me to hear people are still doing it, because
yeah,
that's just like trauma bonding and trauma fishing. And yeah, and even for a woman to be getting people to her by coming from her trauma just seems like, where are we going with this? This can't end up well.
no, exactly. Like this is going to end up, I know, sometimes I watch it like reality TV where I'm like, this is going to end in like a fiery pit somehow. And I don't know.
Oh, with patriarchal women, they don't know rupture and repair. They don't know. No, it's going to end with ghosting. It's going to end with legal tactics. It's going to end. No.
Yes, yes, exactly.
It's completely transactional. It's anti-relational.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think, when I started my business, I didn't know anybody else in this world and I had no template or whatnot. And that was such like the greatest gift,
Yeah.
because I just had to do it on intuition. I just had to do it from my
Yes.
heart, because I literally had no effing clue. And I was like, I don't know, this is what seems like the thing to do. So I'm going to do the thing because this is what I'm just writing what I feel like I should write here. And
Liberating.
It is. And I think, one of the things that, at least in some of the women I work with, that I have to really, I feel almost like bring them back to it, because I feel like now there's so much noise out there being like, this is the template, this is how you have to do it. And I'm like, no, because it's your soul. It's not like one template of how you do this, right? When it's like your soul's work.
Yes.
So, oh my God, so much. I could talk to you for literal
So
hours.
if it's a calling, it's going to come from in here. It's certainly not coming out from the wasteland of the patriarchy right now. It's going to come from in here. So every step of the way, that is what the calling will also tell you how she wants to bloom in the world. So all I remember from B school, I was a dropout, but there was these marketing terms of red ocean and blue ocean, right? And a red ocean was full of sharks because there's so much competition that everybody's doing it the same, and they're all in scarcity, and they're cutthroats, basically. The ocean's full of blood. You want to get to the blue ocean because you're just you in that individuated way your soul came to offer, that there's no one else. It's you in the blue ocean, right?
Yeah.
And that was all I took from B school. The rest I have no idea, and bless. But what it's speaking to is that the soul will have such an individual and unique way of showing up, and people are looking to be individuated. Who am I actually? They're gonna want a woman who is in her own unique individuation herself. That is going to be wildly soul attracted. The ego is going to go, who's the most popular among the popular girls that are all following a trend. That's
Yep.
patriarchal social hierarchy. And if they're looking for that, that's, I think the women we're talking to is, fuck the outside scripts. We need your deeply intuitive primal from the womb place, whether you have one or not, from the depth of us scripts, like the brand, not new age, the old age one of remembrance of the great mother and the feminine. And so, yeah, I would highly suggest to anyone who's resonating with what we're talking about, of like that things have to look a certain way, is like really you need to spend more time with the best healer or coach who has been gathering all this wisdom for all these years but hasn't had the time for herself. Now's the time to be like, my name is Shanae, and I am your marketing genius. And I'm going to, and you have all these different archetypes. You have an amazing marketer in there. You have an amazing copywriter. There are all these different hats. You want to make, and like you should not be paying money for anyone outside when all you need is the time to sit with your own. Right.
Amen. And also, like, we hear all of these, it's so funny because we hear all of these terms like niching, right? Finding your niche, right? And it's like, when you're honoring your personal calling, like, you're already niched. Like, you're niched because it's just coming through you so uniquely that you don't have to, it doesn't have to be like a mental process. It's not a mental process. It's like, oh, this is the unique way I want to talk about this thing, teach about this thing, that's coming through you. And so I think that's, I think it's a great clue to anyone that's out there that is feeling like their calling is feeling really general, is, a kind of remembrance to be like, let's go back inside, because if it's feeling too general, it's probably just influenced by everything else around you, and you're trying to fit what maybe is like the beginning gestation period of something coming inside of you into a box that you see someone else already in, instead of just honoring, because it's a hell of a lot more terrifying to birth the unique thing that's coming inside of you, that you most likely, and most of the experience in my life, and I'm sure with you too, is like, you don't see too many, if any, people out there that's doing it in the unique way that you feel called to do it, or with the unique whatever you want to talk about it. And then you're like, fuck, like, I'm really good. I'm like really, naked and afraid in the dark or whatnot.
So we could also call the terrifying vulnerability. And this trembling vulnerability is what the world needs, like coming straight from that struck open place of like, hey guys, I'm scared, I'm human, I have a few tools to share in these collective times. These are what I know, and this is what I have to offer right now. And I know that we all need to offer our medicine right now. And these are my unique tools in the way these are my tools in the way I offer them. Right. Because I remember when I was starting out and people had kind of like ideas about what I was going to be, because my awakening was a really big Kundalini awakening. And it had a ripple effect around me. And people were like, oh, you're going to be like a spiritual celebrity. And this was back when I was in the patriarchal paradigm. So I thought that like I had to get famous or to be a success, And I was like, oh, like Lady Gaga or something. Like, I was trying to understand what this man was saying to me. And then he was trying to explain to me, he was like, no, not Lady Gaga. You are Lady Gaga. Like, he's like, he said, you are Lady Gaga in the ways of like, you have that power that she has. All she did was tune in and turn it on. So who is Sarah Durham Wilson? Like, when she turns on what Gaga turned on, which is, I'm going to offer this thing. I didn't die. I'm going to offer this thing. I didn't die. She just went first. But like, all it is a woman going, I'm going to say this. I didn't die. I'm going to say this. I didn't die. Because the witch wound's real.
Yeah.
But every time we say something for ourselves, we break another chain for our sisters that are coming out. And I mean, of that patriarchal bud as beautiful, vulnerable, trembling flowers, for life, and our softness, our power.
Yeah. And I love what you said, like, because I've had so many clients over the years that they're like, okay, let me do all of these things before I say that
Yeah.
first scary thing, right? And it's like nothing will replace you just saying the scary thing and knowing
Yeah.
you didn't die,
I know
right?
you did.
And knowing you didn't die. Like the first, in this modern world or whatever, the first time you go on Instagram and say, "Hey, I'm a witch and I love doing these rituals and I want to guide you through a ritual today," right? You're going to
Yeah,
literally feel like you're going to die.
I remember. I
Right?
remember.
And you're going to
Yeah.
like brace yourself for it. And guess
Yeah.
what? You're not going to die. And it's
No.
like
Part
it's
of you will, though. The girl that was too scared to speak will integrate into your mother lap. So,
exactly. Yeah. And I feel like that's just such it's an important reminder, because as important as all of this internal work and going in and going deep within us is, it also is important just like taking those steps,
yeah.
right? And putting yourself out there and allowing that vulnerability to shine through, and then feeling that proof that
Yeah.
you will survive it and you can survive it and you can go even further. But it takes that first step. And then once you take that first step, you can,
That
you
goes
keep
back
in.
to the screaming therapist and the welfare call. It's really hard. And sometimes the mother bird has to go behind you on the nest and be like, boom,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I'm dying. I'm flying.
Exactly. It is so true. And it's true. And it took me, I think I'm generally not someone that is like too, I think, sharp with my clients, but I have found, over the years, the greatest gift I give is when I feel the call and I'm like, oh, it's a tough love. Like, this is like a tough
Yeah.
love moment. And I'm just like, you got to wake up. Like, this
Yeah.
cannot go on any longer. You're like lingering in victimhood and you're ready to like get the F
Yeah.
out right now. Those are
Yes.
like those are the best gifts I think we give
Yes.
to people.
The gong. Wake
The
up,
God,
darling.
the God.
Yeah. You got enough beauty rest. It's time to fight.
It's
Yep.
time. It's time. Oh my God. Okay. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sarah. I literally could, talk to you forever, because I wrote all these questions. Like, we barely scratched the surface because we just like, we're flowing with what came through.
In
And
the flow.
I trust the flow.
Yeah.
Can you share with everyone a little bit more about your offerings and where they can find them, and all the links to everything you mentioned I will put below so they can access them.
Oh, okay. So we're starting a rites of passage. It's really, really special. It's a year-long rites of passage training with a community of 14 teachers, and me teaching you through the maiden to mother process, how to teach it as well, initiating you through and how to teach it. We have women holding like free one-on-ones for people who need them. We have journaling sessions, tons of integration sessions. We have all new rights and archetypes work, which is like the Mother Lover, which is a program I'm running about taking the patriarchy out of parenting. I'm sorry, the Mother Wolf, taking the patriarchy out of parenting. Mother Lover, resurrecting the lover and the mother. And the rite of passage with Jane Hardwick Collins into Autumn Sorceress. And the rite of passage into Crone with my mentor, Kamya O'Keefe. We have incredible guest teachers on decolonization, community crisis, and climate crisis. I mean, community relations and climate crisis, sorry. So decolonizing our relationships and our communities, facing climate crisis together and as leaders, and really learning how to be in community as the mature feminine again, and a real heavy emphasis on decolonization, liberation, and Black feminism and Indigenous feminism. Yeah. So that's all at Sarah of Magdalene on Instagram. And you can just go to link in my bio, or you can go to Sarah of Magdalene or the Mother Spirit, same website.com. And that starts November 13th on the new moon.
Oh, perfect. Well,
Yeah.
then I'll make sure I get this up very quick.
Thank you.
So that anyone that wants to can join in. And I also just have to say, like, if you're listening to this podcast, please, for me, go buy her book, listen to her book. Every woman needs to read and or listen, whichever way you want to enjoy the book,
Yeah.
because there is not a single soul of us that couldn't benefit from what you talk to. And we literally just scratched the surface in this conversation.
Yeah.
You really, you heard her talk about Anana, and she really goes into that whole story and walks you through with beautiful reflection exercises. So you're like actively participating in the book as well as you go through. So, if that's where you want to start, it's a super accessible place to start, and you will all just tremendously benefit from it. I can't sing its praises enough. So
Thank you.
thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
letting us drag them into the deep end a bit. We like to do that, like nymphs in the water. Come just to the edge. Boom.
Yes. You'll thank us later. You'll be laughing later. Right now you're screaming.
Drown first, then learn to swim, then you'll thank us. Yeah.
Oh my
Bless
God.
you.
No, bless you.
Thank you so much.